My name is Hayden Pastor, and my video project number 2 is on the psoas major. Now, what is the psoas major? Well, it is a long fusiform muscle located in the lower back and pelvic region of the body. The psoas major is commonly paired with another muscle called the iliacus, and these two muscles create a muscle known as the iliopsoas. But for my presentation, I'm just going to be focusing on the psoas major. The psoas major is the only muscle that connects the trunk to the lower limb. Fun fact about that. Now, the psoas major originates on the transverse processes of L1 through L5, and also the vertebral bodies of T12 through L5 vertebra and the adjacent intervertebral discs. It inserts on the lesser trochanter of the femur and the shaft just below it. And the psoas major is innervated by the lumbar nerve and the femoral nerve L2 through L4. Now, actions. There's a lot of actions with the psoas major, and this goes along with the iliopsoas as well, but these actions are just of the psoas major. The actions of the psoas major are flexion of the hip, anterior pelvic rotation, external rotation of the hip, transverse pelvic rotation contralaterally when the ipsilateral femur is stabilized, and flexion of the lumbar spine, lateral flexion of the lumbar spine, and lateral pelvic rotation to the contralateral side. Now, to palpate the psoas major, it is quite difficult to palpate. However, if you're going to do that, you want to be seated and leaning slightly forward to relax your abdominal muscles. Now, to palpate the muscle, you're going to want to palpate it deeply between the iliac crest and the 12th rib, about halfway between the acis and umbilicus, with active hip flexion.
Hip flexion. Hip flexion. Anterior pelvic rotation. External rotation of the hip. External rotation. Transverse pelvic rotation. Transverse pelvic rotation. Flexion of the lumbar spine. Lateral flexion of the lumbar spine. Lateral pelvic rotation.
Great. Now that we've looked over and seen these actions demonstrated of the psoas major, what do we use these for? Well, in daily life, the psoas major is used in simply running, walking, and sitting. These are things that we do every single day in our life. Maybe not running, we should, but maybe we don't run every day. However, we walk and we sit every day. So these are daily uses examples of the psoas major. Now, we use it every day. It's going to get tight. How do we stretch it? We're going to focus on 3 different stretches that are going to stretch our psoas major. The first one being a psoas and quadriceps stretch, then the second one being a lunge stretch, and the third being a walking toe touch stretch. So let's look at how those are demonstrated.
This is a psoas and quadriceps stretch. This is the lunge stretch. Walking toe touches.
Great. Now that we looked at how to stretch them, what are some ways that we can regression and progression of these stretches? Let's take a look at those.
So a regression we have for the quadriceps stretch is simply taking the standing and balancing aspect out of the equation. So we're going to stretch the same way. However, we're going to get on the ground, still bring that back ankle back here, and stretch it like this. The more stretch you can lay down a little bit further. You're going to hold your ankle, stretch the same way you would standing up. And now a progression of the quadricep stretch. We're also going to get down on the ground. However, we want to get down onto a knee, and we're going to take that back foot and pull it up. This is going to create a deeper stretch and a little more balance. That's going to add to the challenging factor of it.
Now that we know how to stretch the psoas major, how can we strengthen it? Stretching and strengthening going hand in hand. We need to strengthen, but we also need to stretch. We need to stretch, but we also need to strengthen. So 3 ways that we're going to focus on of strengthening the psoas major are the boat pose, leg raises, and glute bridges. So let's look at those demonstrated.
So a boat pose, kind of known as a V-up as well. You're going to get down on the ground. You're going to bring your legs up and your arms forward as well, creating a V, and your goal is to hold it here and that's going to strengthen that psoas major. So feet are up, straight line, arms out, creating that nice V or boat pose. Another way we're going to strengthen that psoas major, also down on the ground, we're going to do leg raises. Leg raises, you're going to lie flat on your back, and you're going to lift one leg at a time, upwards, straight legs, like this. The final strengthening exercise we are going to talk about for the psoas major is a glute bridge. You're going to lie flat on your back, bring your knees in, your feet towards your butt, and what you're going to do is you're going to bridge up into a bridge position, lower your back self down, and repeat it as many times as you like. It looks like this. Flat on your back, knees in towards your butt, and you're going to bridge up. You want to hold it there for a second, and then slowly lower back down, and repeat it over and over again.
Now that we've seen those 3 exercises demonstrated to strengthen the psoas major, let's take one of those, being the glute bridge, and let's regression and progression this exercise.
All right, so let's talk progression for the glute bridge. What is a way that we can make it a little bit easier? Well, you're going to want to use a foam roller or anything like a foam roller. But if you don't have a foam roller, just get one. They're really good for you. Anyways, you're going to use this basically to decrease the amount that you're going to have to bridge up. So you're going to decrease the height that you're going to bridge up by putting this right under your ankles and your calves. I'll show you how to do that right now. Down on the ground, place the foam roller underneath your calves, lay back down your back, and you're going to simply just bridge up from there. You're only going to go a few inches off the ground, but however, that is the point of regression. We're making it a little bit easier. However, you're still targeting the correct muscles by doing this. Lastly, what we're going to talk about is the progression of the glute bridge. How can we make this a little bit more difficult? Well, in a normal glute bridge, you have 2 feet on the ground and you bridge up. Well, to make it more difficult, what you're going to do, you're going to take 1 foot off the ground and do a glute bridge with just 1 foot. Now, this foot off the ground can either be extended or it can be a little bit bent. But you just want to make sure it is off the ground, but still in control, not flailing everywhere in the air. So it looks a little bit something like this. You're on the ground, back down, 1 leg up, and you're going to bridge up with just 1 leg. And it's okay for that leg that's in the air to move a little bit, as long as it's stable and controlled.
Now we know the actions of the psoas major, how to stretch it, and how to strengthen it. Even with all this, injuries are going to happen. The most well-known injury to the psoas major is Psoas syndrome. Now, this is difficult to diagnose due to its symptoms presenting as other injuries. So it's going to be misdiagnosed as other injuries probably before it actually gets properly diagnosed as Psoas syndrome. This occurs when the psoas muscle is extremely tight or in spasm. This pain can radiate to other places, making it difficult to initially locate and correctly diagnose as Psoas syndrome the first time. While we don't know the exact causes of Psoas syndrome, however, related causes that we know of are engagement in plyometric or jumping exercises, prolonged periods of sitting is a big one, weak abdominal and gluteal muscles, the supporting muscles, long periods of cycling, poor neuromuscular control, weak pelvic floor muscles, and poor posture. So while this injury it can happen and it happens in daily life and everything, using the stretching and strengthening exercises and stretches, those are really going to help prevent Psoas syndrome. Now, that is all on the Psoas major for today. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I hope you enjoyed and found value in this presentation. Thank you.